He's en route. Thank you for everyone being here this morning. Welcome into our April the 9th, 2025 Homeless Planning Council meeting. And I do have something just communal I want to convey. It's nothing bad. It's just a heartfelt disclaimer. I and we have to, as a community, have difficult conversations to fix and heal homelessness disease of this nation and our own city. This is our portion and realm of always being rooted in solutions. Surprisingly, I also have a medical background too, and that lets me see how housing is healthcare. Refusing to be labeled anything but good trouble. Our truth, they're not complaints, there are facts of true untapped data. We only can make Nashville's blueprint that we are already doing and bootstrapped along the way. So imagine what we all, each individual could accomplish in each perspective lane. As someone deeply connected to dually the provider community, visibly and invisibly, in a dual capacity, I translate and share our communal commitment to advancing all people out of homelessness. Guided by the Eagle's view of lived experience, we focus organically on real-time houselessness heartbeat news, which shapes our local COC navigation efforts and will drive efficiency. Without those of us who have lived these non-monolithic places and spaces without dwellings, none of this would need to exist at all. Our strategies include thriving in housing first, permanent supportive housing with processes, co-ops, and workforce development and leadership development as well in adults and youth. Shout out to our first foundational lived experience partner who has access to 500 hotel rooms coming online in phases. That's starting in September of 2025. Despite challenges with funding across the board, they also still serve and we appreciate them. I do truly extend gratitude to Office of Homeless Services, the City of Austin for showing us how to onboard 1,200 units by true city buy-in, the Eviction Rights Council for their super vital role, in housing first and beyond to the community. A big thank you to Together, Bigger Vision Films, Sam Simbris, Housing First, Humble Soul, everyone that was at the film's meet and greet. Special thank you to our own David Mango Martin of Park Center for all the opportunity that came with meeting them. We as a city cannot wait for their return date. It was a true honor to meet each of them. And it's postponed, but circling back. That's people calling me for my birthday. Sorry, y'all.
Birthday.
So if my phone is going off, that's what it is. I'm going to have to just get back with them. But receiving training in critical time intervention is reinforced our approach as the only lived experience in the room. We recognize the power of solidarity through partnerships like NOAA, Park Center, and the peer-to-peer support networks. As the first lived experience chair, I acknowledge the unique challenges of ensuring our voices are heard clearly and respectfully. Despite any hurdles, we each remain steadfast in advancing real-time insights and solutions that reflect the true pulse of our collective community. And again, as I turn 42 this very day, I deeply reflect on our collective journey towards meaningful change. Together, the chairs and committees, general membership, we are all rebuilding our COC with transparency and unity, not in harm, only in harm reduction. We're mapping collective and communal priorities, aligning strategic plans, manuals, processes, policies, and procedures. Committees have made strides over the years, and we invite members to continue to join us in strengthening our charter, efficiency, and bylaws. Let us continue enacting solutions that always involve lived experience in all parts with the utmost urgency, solidarity, as per the COC strategic plan. incorporating in various forms mutual aid and healing through STEAM and the arts. A couple of us have songs coming out this month, and that's just the beginning. As always, thank you all for unwavering support as we rebuild together, getting on track. And thank you so very much, and welcome to the HPC meeting. And we'll go ahead and get started. I'll get the roll. And so myself, I am present, no conflict. Pastor Stephen
Present
Handy.
conflict.
Okay. And Deirdre Nicole Childress. Miss Liz Mallard.
Present, no conflict.
Okay. Jamie Villegas. Dr. Exidria Inslee.
Present, no conflict.
India Panjagar.
Present, no conflict.
Drew Freeman. Diana Allen Robb.
Present. Pollen is my conflict right now. And happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I appreciate
But
it.
seriously, no conflicts.
Michelle Southard.
Present, no conflict.
Andrea Hancock. Meredith McLeod Jolin. Yes. David Lango Martin.
Present. Conflict.
Jordan Huffman, we got word from him already. Councilwoman Courtney Johnson.
Present, no conflict.
Councilman John Rutherford.
Present, no conflict.
Okay. And then, hold on. Adam Hansen, I know what's going on there. Ashley Horton, Lizzie Goddard,
Present, no conflict.
Laura Ward got in touch with us. Angie Lawless,
Present, no conflict.
Jahar Martin,
Present, no conflict.
and Rico X.
Present, no conflict.
All righty. Thank you so very much, everyone, and welcome. And the names of the folks that we lost over the past month. And actually, our list is shorter, so that is very much so heartwarming to me. As I was coming in this morning, the first thing I saw was a lady walking down the street in her sleeping bag. So it just made me think about medical respite and, you know, being able to get people out of the cold. So just thinking of that as we honor these names that did pass without having a dwelling and just giving them a moment of silence. So Charles Kimbrough, Susan Roca, Linda Amos, Maurice Quarles, John Coleman, Joseph Williams, Rachel Marie Clark. And if we could just have a moment of silence. Thank you so very much for that, everyone. And we're going to go to the review of the minutes for March. And if we could please notate any corrections needed. And I'll give just a moment for everyone to do that. And if none are noted, we can move along to the next item. Okay. I don't foresee any corrections at this point, so we'll move along to the next item, which is going to be Miss April Calvin, and that's the Office of Homeless Services Director's Report.
Almost hit it twice, guys. How are you all? So, several things in your package here. One is the report on the $50 million package and other things that we'll discuss. But I wanted to spend a lot of time today discussing the methodology for the Old Tent City. As you all may remember, In December, this body approved the encampment strategy. Maybe between August and September, the prioritization team identified the next 3 locations and hammered out which one would be next. We spent some time in January bringing on a new vendor for the temporary housing location. And in looking at the goals of the encampment strategy, it says, by pairing targeted and intensive outreach with housing solutions to the most vulnerable encampments in Nashville, we will provide interim housing options that lead to permanent housing solutions. And so just going back, I feel like I know that this camp is really a hot topic, but what I always put first are the people that live there. And our team has been providing outreach in that space for quite some time, and hearing other agencies or the residents there state that it's not safe and people are not coming down, or even hearing, in podcasts where someone is saying, an individual is saying, I don't know how agencies are to trust the individuals there when, bad things are happening to some of the agencies that are coming down. So for me, I really focus much more on the safety, and not just me, the entire encampment strategy focuses on the safety of the individuals, the safety of the location, and the safety of the environment there. So that's kind of where we are as far as the meetings, the planning, and what took us to this next location. So planning and prep, our outreach organization, our outreach department meets with organizations every Wednesday. And throughout this process, they were also gathering an intensive by name list, checking it double time, checking it triple time. In the last 6 months, gathering that information. And what they oftentimes heard was, well, when is housing going to be made available? When will the solutions be made available? So, after we completed that step, the next step was securing the housing solutions, right? The interim housing options that actually are online or coming online. I hear a lot about like they were being held or not being used, or they were not being paid for. So I want to be clear, there was no money wasted for units that were not being paid for. And I think you probably remember your prior chair, Jaha Martin, always referencing not only do you have to have the housing units, but you have to have the service providers that's providing that level of intensive care. And so as we, January, February, brought on a new vendor, this information was approved through Metro Council for that vendor to be able to, the agreements for that vendor to be able to provide services. And here we are. So as they're scaling up their staff, they're taking inventory on units, and I would like to repeat, these units are not being paid for while people are not living there. So there's no money wasted in this situation here. But we needed to ensure you can't just move 120 people into any location without ongoing supportive services. And we needed to make sure that that vendor was prepared. But other housing options that are being considered would be bridge housing, SRO units, shared housing. We have about 25 shared vacant units where the rent is $300 or less per month. Shared housing. Low Barrier Housing Collective, we talk about all of the vacancies that those units carry. I don't highlight it as much because we know we need a subsidy to attach to those. Other options are recovery programs. Family reunification is huge. A lot of times in encampment closures, we're able to reconnect people to family. Medical respite and emergency shelter options. So just want to make sure that you all know that we have places for people to go. Our encampment strategy was never to close a location and push people down the road. That is not helpful to anyone, nor is that what we as an office is committed to doing. So want to make sure that you all feel comfortable with that. And I think also next step for us is communication. So I've had over 20 individuals reach out to me and say, why didn't you tell me first? Now, if I notified all 20 people before notifying the individuals that lived in that camp, I would be doing them a disservice. So as a department, we have always been committed to ensuring that the individuals received handwritten notices, a handshake, and verbal conversations with our outreach workers that they already know. Our team has been there for 6 to 8 months at this point. So it's vitally important in a trauma-informed manner that we provide that level of care. Right as the notices went out, I immediately made connections with the district council member that lives in that district. I called the Homeless Planning Council chair. We played phone tag a little bit. The SWAP chair, we played phone tag a little bit. And then other important individuals that was a part of this work wanted to make sure that they were well informed as well, but not prior to the individuals who actually live in the location. Engagement. So case management engagement is ongoing. Our outreach team knows exactly who goes into that location and how often. And the individuals share with us who their case managers are, and we also have the HMIS database where this information is shared as well. Other forms of communication will be our outreach team is in that encampment Monday through Friday from 10 to 2, helping with engagement, helping to connect people to services, verifying with other organizations on if they've received their documents and birth certificates. So that's where a lot of the boots on the ground work will happen, right there with the individuals connected to the services. Interim gap housing, we have calls with both locations twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. Encampment care coordination call, that will start this Friday as we have several individuals that are saying, I'm ready to go, and why is it taking so long? Citywide outreach meetings. Our team for over the last 3 years have been having citywide outreach meetings, a large group, a small group, and then an in-person. So every Wednesday there is a touch point with outreach community. And as we implement this plan, these are all the places where we will be communicating on what's going on or what's next. Don't feel like we have to create a new point of contact or a new meeting, because all of these things have been happening and they're going to continue. Also, logistics planning. Every Tuesday I have a meeting with the property owners and other metro departments that's responsible for even CSX, the railroad, is a huge part of this conversation as well. And then weekly resource fairs every Thursday at the location. We will be hosting those. So mobilization, right? The steps that I'm talking about are things that are just heavily steeped in that encampment strategy and giving you kind of the way that we're following those things. Clients are asking us, can they move quickly? And we are wanting to ensure that the vendor's ready and food is ready, and we're putting all the steps in place that need to happen. We did a 60-day notice just to align with some of the work that some of our advocacy agencies are already doing currently with the state bills that may be coming out. So we wanted to show alignment there. Community partners in the outreach meeting. The large one is today at 9, today's the 9th. It's today at noon. I believe today's in person, but there's also a virtual link for those that would like to join. What we do ask is, as we're talking about client-centered information, that you don't share that link with the media because it's not appropriate. Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 is where you can find our team down at the encampment. We talked about this. Let's see, storage. Someone asked me about storage being made available. Metro has a non-disclosed storage location where we store items that individuals won't need, like chainsaws and hatchets and things like that. They don't need to take with them to their next housing option, but we will offer totes so that we can store them. Not individual storage units, because we could never afford that, right? But we do have a place where we can store their items. Councilman Coopin, I've been in contact with him from before even the media release went out to the media, but also have shared with him how Council Lady Johnston and other and Councilman Huffman helped with welcome kits in order once camps were slotted for a housing surge in their district. And so I've shared that information with him, and that's what we're working on is welcome kits. We do have some items that were left from Councilor-Lady Johnston's welcome kits and some that were left from Councilman Huffman's packages as well. So we have enough to get us started there. And then move-in dates will start pretty soon because people are asking and are ready to move. Pets, I know that's a big question. People are asking where will the pets go? Where Outreach will be working with Safe Paw and several other Metros, Animal Control, several others just to ensure that they are being vaccinated and they receive the services that they need as well. Ongoing communication will live every time we schedule a housing surge at a location. We try to have this information readily available to everyone, and we will share this tomorrow morning at SWAP committee at the HPC every time. We'll probably have about 3 more meetings before, final dates. Metro Council, the mayor's office, and the COC. And the very last part of that encampment strategy is to draft an after-action plan. And I've already figured out our first topic for the after-action plan, which is out of the 20 individuals that said to me, hey, you should have notified me at first, maybe prior to the date of passing out or the day of passing out the notice to the individuals, because I'm still very committed to ensuring that they receive that information first. Maybe hosting a WebEx meeting simultaneously so that information can be shared at the same time. I know the speed of information or the speed of trust all go hand in hand, but the trust that we really hold dear would be the individuals that live in that location. I have several more topics that I wanted to discuss, but I know there's probably a lot of questions, and so I'm going to do a pause and open the floor for questions, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
That's perfect. Any questions or thoughts, concerns? Oh, I don't know whose hand went up first. I saw you maybe first.
Thank you. So, I know that we're good on units that are coming available, as well as the simultaneous wraparound services, so I'm happy with that. I wanted to go back to the welcome kits. When I created that, when we closed the encampment in my district, we noticed we felt like that was something that could be pushed forward, and I know Councilmember Huffman sort of piggybacked on that. What I want to know, because I think a lot of people that are listening are saying, how can I help? Which is why we started the conversation with Community Foundation to create the fund, because that's really critical in being able to purchase these items. I think it's important for people to know that when we have these units, especially at our main rapid rehousing facility, those units are bare. It is a mattress, and it is a bathroom, and it is a bureau. They may have a table and a chair or two in there, and that is it. There's no pillows, there's no sheets, there's no towels, there's no nothing. And so these welcome kits, I hope, were impactful. So where are we? It's been a couple of years probably since we had that conversation with Community Foundation, because we had originally thought about creating like a QR code or some type of something to make it really easy for people to be able to contribute and help in this. Where are we with that?
Thanks for that question. So as our department was splitting budgets and all from Metro Social Services, because that conversation was when we were still there, and moving into our own department, there was a lot of logistics that where funding needed to be separated. And so was waiting a little bit for a pause on ensuring that conversation. I've reached out to have a couple of conversations with Hal Cato on the next steps for rolling that out.
Okay. If I can help with that, definitely let me know, please.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you, Councilwoman Johnston. And I don't recall the other council person that helped with that as well for the welcome kits. That's very appreciated. And I do have that the provider I mentioned earlier has Amazon pallets that come in all the time. Like they had over 4,000 types of clothing for people at one point. So being able to plug them in as well to you all is, I think, very helpful to collaborate. But thank you so very much for that. And Indy, I know you had your hand up as well.
Can you hear me on this? Okay, thank you. I just had 3 questions. First, I think you just mentioned the 120. Is that the number, just to confirm that that's the number of individuals on the by name list for Old Tent City?
I believe there's 125 on the by name list.
Okay, thank you. And then similarly, could this body get like the numbers of the different transitional options that people are being offered and the number of beds or units that are associated with each of those?
Absolutely.
I just think that would be really helpful. And then finally, I have a presence in that encampment with the organization that I work for, and there are a significant number of people, like you mentioned, that have not only pets but multiple pets, as well as RVs and campers. And I know that is going to be a very difficult situation to navigate. That's not lost on me. So I want to make sure we're having those conversations ahead of time because, come the, closure date, there's going to be multiple RVs that people are not going to want to give up. And so I'm wondering if there's creative options that can or are already being discussed, whether that be yes, someone can bring this camper with them and park it at a location until they move into permanent housing. But I think that's a particularly challenging situation that's going to happen with this encampment that maybe we haven't encountered as much in the other encampments so far.
You're absolutely correct. We have never encountered campers at any of the other locations. We have started already engaging those individuals. There's several things that we need to know. Are they registered? Are they operable? Can they be, driven out of there? Because all of the other places that we're connecting with, they want answers to those questions. So we will start a phase of gathering, registration, information like that, because that will determine where they can be relocated to. But unfortunately or fortunately, one of the individuals that's ready to move this week, if made available, is one that says he wants to walk away because it's nothing that's savory in that camper unit. So all of them may have different situations. So we're gonna, and even with that, we would get something in writing from him saying he chose to, leave that camper there behind.
For sure. Thank you.
One other thing I do want to talk about temporary solutions as well. I know a couple of people asked me why CCF was not listed on our list of interim housing options, and it's simply because they're on a per diem basis, and so as units are filled, they're paid for people that are staying there, and so not to interfere with their per diem rates, we wanted to make sure that as units become available, that would be an option or an opportunity, but not holding units because they are on a per diem rate.
I have a question. So I understand, thank you, that we have the interim housing in place, right? But from my understanding, we have very few, if no vouchers in circulation right now. And like you said, it's great to have participating property owners and all of that, but if we don't have subsidies, then this feels, again, like a temporary option. So I'm curious if there are any updates or any maybe future numbers we could see around what are the actual permanent housing options? What is that scale for the 125 and our other folks on the by name list? I think it would just help me understand the perspective of what's the actual permanent solution for these folks.
So another thing before answering that question that I do want to discuss is typically when we have a housing surge at an encampment, it is vital that we do not disrupt the normal flow of the COC. So we have typically not taken COC funds or RRH funds and diverted to this because we want all that work to still happen simultaneously. The work of the city and the work of our community providers, housing individuals, does not stop simply because we're doing an encampment, housing surge at an encampment. And so that's one. And then as far as the vouchers are concerned, right now with, federal, state changes, we do not have an idea of when vouchers will come back online. But what we do know is a small subset of vouchers dedicated to us every month will not get us out of this situation. You know, those individuals, this camp has been open for 40 years, I hear, and I'll say to me, as a city, we can do better. And so other options that I'm researching, I've had a couple of conversations with like David Langle Martin, who, other things that I'm researching would be shared housing, creative solutions that, you know, like there's an organization whose shared housing is $350 per month, which is something that is, if someone's receiving disability income, they qualify for and won't need a voucher for. Other things would be in our metro budget. We brought Austin here for a reason, because we wanted to make sure that our city, our community service providers, and our metro council members knew that it was feasible, and other cities have done well with putting funding streams in their budget. So it could be, I call it non-traditional RRH, or non-traditional operating cost for supportive services and housing opportunities for like a PSH. So knowing that we're going to need to put some of that in our budget, knowing that we still have some ARPA funds that we can deploy, I felt like this was the right time for that kind of conversation. Also knowing that we're going to have to get super creative. We've been hosting some work group meetings with MDHA on other creative solutions, and I know that the Affordable Housing Committee is committed to working with MDHA as well. So I think that we're on right track with, if our community had become so voucher heavy that that's all we talked about, the 18 vouchers that we received per month from MDHA, and that was never going to get us further ahead. So we need those, and we would continue to work with MDHA, and we have monthly meetings with them, and then we have every other week work groups going on right now where we're trying to figure out where we stand as far as future funding opportunities.
Thank you for that and all the questions and responses. I think to India's point, we do have a lived experience leader that was about to be on the panel for the Beyond the Bridge homelessness solutions that mentioned a long time ago safe parking options for people living in cars, because that's a real thing. I think that falls under the RV premise, and that it needs to be a larger conversation surrounding that and solutions. And the voucher, I feel like with the city of Austin, they explained how the city helped them create their own revenue source for vouchers to create more, because to your point, yes, the 18 is not enough, so we need way more than that. So we have to come to a solution as a community, how that looks for people inside of the trauma-informed care. But next is going to be Ms. Allison Cantway for the collaborative applicant report.
Which is the right button next time. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Cantway. Excuse me. We have a few updates. So I believe it was the day after last month's HPC, when HUD released some COC award letters, which was great. So some local agencies got those award letters, which basically just said, congratulations, you were awarded this amount of funding. We already knew the amount, but they were sent to the individual agencies. Some agencies at that time also received contracts, because typically those things come together, the award letter and the contract. Some agencies received contracts, some agencies didn't. Some agencies received nothing. Those that received contracts got an email almost immediately that then rescinded them. So we are still waiting for a resolution on this. I'm not aware of any local agencies that have received their updated contract. If you are aware of any that have received, please let me know. But I don't know that any have received their updated contract. We're on a call every other week with COCs throughout the state. And I do know that someone in East Tennessee said that their COC had started saying the final contracts. So I hope that's coming soon. But that's kind of where we are, is we're waiting for those contracts to come through for everyone. I will also say that, so the HUD secretary posted on Twitter, like a template of what those contracts would look like. With no agency, no award amount or anything like that, just sort of what the agreement was. And it had very different language than what we've seen in the past. It had a lot of language about, which clients you can serve, being sure to not serve folks that are undocumented, making sure the funds don't support lots of different things. It's very new language. Of course, we don't really know exactly what will end up on the final contracts. So we're just sort of, we're waiting to see how all of this rolls out. And of course, we'll keep everybody updated as soon as we know anything. And the only other thing that I would note is that this is my understanding, not being a senator, but my understanding is that in the continuing resolution budget that was passed by Congress, that the HUD money was part of that, the COC money, but that it did not include increases for fair market rent. So that may affect the funding amounts or how many clients folks can serve. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not a politician, but that is my understanding, is that it was passed without the fair market rent increase. So I think that's just something that we'll need to keep tabs on, keep our eyes on, and just be aware of when these contracts roll through. So I wish I had something more concrete to share, but I promise that we are following this every single day. Every single day, I am looking at what's coming out from HUD, other COCs, to get the best information that we can.
I do want to add, I had an in-person meeting with a HUD rep, a high-up HUD yesterday, and it was not lost on me that throughout that meeting, while I'm worried about Nashville, what's going to happen, that individual was indeed worried about their own job and the job of their staff members. And so information is trickling down very slow because kind of at even the middle management level, higher to middle management level, a lot of changes are still happening for them internally as well.
That's a very good point.
Okay, thank you both for that. Were there any questions or, Councilwoman Johnston?
I want to talk about the $50 million for a few minutes, if you don't mind. I know, April, you and I have talked, and I'm a little bit concerned. There's a couple of things I think that need to be updated. The $25 million for gap financing for PSH, I think there's just some Excel numbers that need to be reflected, because if you look on there's no page number, item 10, for that $25 million, the total award amount is not $16 million, it's $25 million, less the $830,000 that went to MDHA for their fee. And also the number of units, 182. Underneath there, it has some detail around 38 units and then 64 units. I think that needs to be updated as well to add in what went to the Barnes Fund, and of the units that went to for the money that went to the Barnes Fund, what of that was PSH, what of that is 0 to 30% AMI, so that we're accurately reflecting that. I want to go back to the money that did go, the $7.5-ish million that went to Barnes Fund through Omni Family Foundation. It says units will be ready for occupancy when contract is executed. We've already approved by council. When is that contract going to be executed?
That contract has been executed at this point in time.
Okay, so we need to update that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's the first $9 million looks like we've pretty much spent that down, which is good. The second, for Housing First Supportive Services, we've got a long way to go. Of $9 million, we've got 6.5 that needs to be spent. And I understand that a large chunk of that is, no, this is a whole different thing. This has been 2 years now that we've had this $9 million and we've spent very little of it. So what are we doing? And this is my concern about just from this perspective, but also my service on the Financial Oversight Committee that allocated or made recommendations for allocating these dollars. I know we've got the spending can occur all the way through the end of 26. The allocation has to be updated by the end of this year, or the federal government will take the money back. And so we have some things we can do. Where are we working with folks like Colby's Army that has not spent very much, Mending Hearts that has not spent, I mean, none of these folks have spent very much.
So, there we go. All righty. Hit the wrong button first. So, several great things to highlight is, one, we have 12 to 18 months to spend the rest of these funds. Two, it shows that we have capacity, funding capacity in our city to rev up services for the most vulnerable individuals. Third, we're working with Mary Jo, actually today at 10:30, I think we have a meeting. We've already done projections on spend down, and throughout our every other Wednesday, we have meetings with all of these service providers where we discuss scaling up, we discuss their current spending trends. We've talked to several of them about, this large influx. A lot of them will not go to an encampment or outside where it may be deemed unsafe, but they will go to the housing opportunities that are made available. We've also had a couple of conversations with some of those that have a pretty big pot on how to, leverage or braid their services into wherever a lot of our Anthony's Drive individuals end up. And so trying to make the partnership happen there where funds can come from them instead of another funding source. So we got a lot of creative solutions, but what I do want to highlight is that it shows that we have capacity still in our city to address some of the hardest to serve individuals.
Okay, and I'm glad you're talking with Mary Jo. She's, obviously incredibly capable. I just want to make sure, once we pass the end of this year, you've got to spend that money the way that you said you're going to spend the money, or we will lose those dollars. So just want to make sure we've done a lot of talking for 2 years at this point, and so I'm tired of the talking. I would rather let's get these services out there. I understand we've had some challenges. I'm not going to go into those challenges, but the $7 million low barrier housing, we're obviously, that allocation was $4 million, and we've, for this part of that $7 million allocation, there's $3.5 million left of the $4 million after 2 years. Now, 2.5 of that I see with Hospitality Hub, which I think that will go pretty quickly, understanding where they are and what's about to happen there. But I just want to put that out there, that this is a little bit concerning that we haven't spent the money the way that I anticipated that money to go very, very quickly. And here we are 2 years later going, oh, Jesus, are we going to be able to spend this money? Or I'm thinking that anyway. But I appreciate you staying on top of it. If you'll let me know what your conversation is at 10:30 with Mary Jo, I'd be interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. That's very valid points. And Allison, did you have anything else or anybody else on
Unless
that?
anybody has a question.
Okay. And then, so we'll go to Hannah, and that'll be Homeless Management Information System report back. Hey, Hannah.
Hey, everybody. All right, we have our monthly report that shows that 3,570 people experienced homelessness in Nashville in March 2025. They were in 3,018 households, which was 230 families, including 371 children and 2,778 adult-only households. And over the past 12 months, 10,286 unique people have experienced homelessness in Nashville. Below that, we have the monthly numbers for the Metro Cold Weather Shelter. In March, served 372 individuals, and the Nashville Rescue Mission for the data in HMIS served 2,005 people. Additionally, of the people who experienced homelessness in March, 9% or 306 were veterans, 7% or 244 were youth aged 18 to 24, 45% were experiencing chronic homelessness, and we had a really large inflow into HMIS in the month of March at 1,097 people entered into HMIS. Below that, we have the racial and gender demographics of the people experiencing homelessness in the month of March. So 49% of people were Black and 40% were white, 61% were men and 37% were women. On the housing side, 142 people experiencing homelessness were housed in March 2025. So we went up a little bit after a few months of extremely low numbers. That was 88 households, 18 families, and 70 adult-only households. And over the past 12 months, 1,863 people have been housed.
You could go ahead, Andy.
I just wanted to make sure there's not something I'm not thinking of, but were there any reasons why that inflow was so high last month in particular?
We looked into it because we were like, this is crazy, and we couldn't find anything like unique that happened. It just was kind of a wild month.
Yeah, I think that's almost like for every one person we housed, almost 8 people were entered into the system as experiencing homelessness. So yeah, that was surprising.
If it continues, we'll definitely keep looking into it because that's very high. Usually that's like 600.
I also want to note that I think out of that number, 8, because see, I think sometimes it's confusing to the community because they think these are all newly unhoused individuals. And out of that, 847 were returning, meaning that they were updated in the system. Not like returning into homelessness, but updated in the system.
That may reflect a lot of people had been inactive. We hadn't seen them for a long
Yes.
time, and they sort of reappeared with a service provider.
Okay, were there any more comments or concerns?
I can keep going through it if we're good.
Oh, sorry. Apologies, I didn't know.
No worries.
You weren't at the end.
So of the people who were housed, we housed 30 veterans, 6 youth aged 18 to 24, and 57 people experiencing chronic homelessness. The average length of time from HMIS entry to permanent housing exit was 135 days in March. We can see that's pretty on par with the past year in the graph below that. A lot of people were housed with friends and family. 28 households were housed with friends and family, 22 households with no subsidy, and 20 households with rapid rehousing subsidies. And the agencies who housed the most households in March were Operation Stand Down, Oasis Center, and Park Center.
Okay. Thank you for that, Hannah. And if we could go to Raquel for the Continuum of Care report updates.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to run through updates and just pull out things that are high level, and then if you have any questions, let me know. I did want to mention that we did have a general membership meeting last month where they elected both a vice facilitator as well as an HPC liaison. So I might have her wave her hand. Her name is Kenna Hassler from Park Center. And we're going to be training her up to at least share general membership updates in this space. And so if you all ever need to connect with the general membership or have questions, hopefully she can be a resource for you. And I will mention that we will have a general membership meeting next Thursday. Nominating membership committee worked on that agenda yesterday, and it seems like the conversation is really going to focus on a survey that the Initiatives Efficiency Group has put together to track some processes that might need to be improved that they can work on, as well as talking about how to strengthen and create grievance processes across the community. And then also having a little bit more of like group consensus in terms of what to discuss at meetings. And so I think they're going to pilot some new strategies to hopefully make that space a little bit more actionable, which is some feedback that we've consistently heard from the community. A couple things to highlight. Governance Charter Committee met for the first time last month. They will now be meeting on the 4th Monday of every month. They are actively looking to see if there's anyone who's interested in getting in the weeds of the charter. And so if anyone is interested, that might be a good opportunity, especially to make sure that that the sections on the Homelessness Planning Council align with both current practices and what would be most effective. And so if you're interested in getting involved, please let us know. I will mention that the Data and HMIS Oversight Committee did like a full review of all of the reports of the HMIS team. It was kind of a good refresh for them to know what is currently being communicated with the public so that they can be better ambassadors of data, but also so that they can figure out what additionally might need to be looked into. And so this upcoming meeting will really be focused more on diving into reporting. The Coordinated Entry Oversight Committee Our CE team and myself worked with them. We pulled all of the feedback that they had shared over the last few months of reviewing and realized that it would be much more efficient to kind of reorganize the document to align with some HUD examples in other cities, because I think the existing CE policies and procedures really didn't flow with how people think about coordinated entry. And so we brought that back last month. So it's looking like CE's policies and procedures might be delayed another month before it comes to this body, but it is on track, and I think, were excited to see that we had a document that was actually understandable to people who don't understand coordinated entry. I did want to correct that the lived experience cohort, the date on that is wrong, so they are actually meeting tomorrow. The full cohort is meeting, and it's going to be a big dive into the strategic plan. And there's also some looming questions about whether it might make sense to pull the lived experience cohort or the consumer advisory board out of the charter. And so I think there's some exploration going into that, both in the governance charter committee as well as with folks with lived experience, to make sure it aligns with what they want. And I think the last thing that I'll focus on is the initiatives efficiency group, which is currently listed as TBD. They did meet on Monday, and we're really energized, and they've asked Chair Kenitha Patterson, who was at that meeting, to establish them as an ad hoc task force. The difference between a task force and committee is that it's time limited and it's supposed to have a specific goal. So they listed 2 specific goals. One is to lean in and provide some capacity building to get all components of the strategic plan to on track by the end of 2025. And then separately to pilot grievance processes. We haven't had a grievance process in the charter. Previously, the charter committee was very hesitant to build that out because there's just so many different types of grievances that might need to be fielded. And so they were open to taking that on because they thought that it might be one of the best ways to get our community in a healthier way of providing feedback and addressing problems as they emerge. And so I'll pause there.
Thank you, Raquel. And I know on the Consumer Advisory Board tip, I just want to add the 7 components named there. We already have gone into those and broken them down by strategy, and I have like an annual plan already ready. I just need to get it, I guess, turned in to the governance charter as well as everybody else is pouring into sending their documents that are completed already to governance and charter to be able to incorporate that into the charter as well. So just wanted to make that correction, but otherwise, very exciting updates about the refreshment and pouring into each committee. And if you could go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to simply say I'm honored to be in a room where leaders ask challenging questions. Mm-hmm. I'm also in a space where I think at some point in time, we have to pause and appreciate the work that has been done by Director Calvin and her team. We can get caught up in asking so many questions, trying to find solutions that we don't appreciate from whence we've come. So on behalf of my spirit and those in this room, Director Calvin, thank you and your team for this hard work. It means a lot, and although we may not say it enough, thank you for inheriting a mess and working through it.
Amen. That's a testament to exactly what I said earlier. And though it may not seem, we do appreciate, just like I said earlier in my welcome speech. But we'll move along to the next item, and that's going to be here. And the brief from Austin visit. Allison Cantway.
Yeah, I can share a little bit of information, and then April can jump in as well. But I think a lot of y'all know that we got a visit from the city of Austin. So April was in Austin recently, visited one of their PSH sites, and sort of learned more about how the city is really invested in permanent supportive housing. So they came here, they brought someone from their planning department, from sort of what is like their OHS, their city homelessness department. They brought their COC lead and a PSH service provider to really just tell us about what they've been doing. So they came in, they spoke to the housing division of the planning department. They spoke to a community group of like affordable housing stakeholders. And then they met with the Metro Budget and Finance Committee to talk about what they've done. Austin made the decision to really focus on permanent supportive housing, which I think we all know across the country, there is really a dearth of this permanent supportive housing. And there are folks who need permanent housing with those supportive services. That's the model that's gonna be best to keep them housed. And so they really said, we're gonna dig into this. They onboarded about 1,200 units in just a few years. They scaled it up really, really quickly. And they had, of course, their city has a different structure. They have city and county. We don't. We have consolidated government, but they sort of created a funding partnership between the city, the county, and then philanthropic organizations for some of this. Sort of like let's all kind of contribute our piece. And as Kenitha said, they created their own vouchers through the city because they recognized that they needed more vouchers than what they were getting from the housing authority. They also found, and I think this is known nationwide, but it is a lot more cost efficient to house people in permanent supportive housing. Because whenever folks are not housed, they're going to consume a lot of city services, ambulances, hospitals, all of these sorts of things that are really, really expensive when, putting them in permanent supportive housing is really going to lead to better long-term outcomes, and it's a better investment. So they are also really seeing a lot of positive outcomes for their clients. And so they are really sold on this model of investing really heavily in PSH and watching it play out. So we, of course, asked a lot of questions to try to see how they've made this happen, see how this could be adapted here. I think we know the HMIS Oversight and Data Committee has made the recommendation for several years that we need to focus on funding permanent supportive housing. And so that's kind of the broad overview. Again, I know that several of y'all met with them or were at the events, but we wanted to share because we thought it was a really great learning opportunity to sort of see what one of our sister cities is doing. So.
Thank you so very much for that, Allison. Were there any questions, or we'll move along to the next? Do we have Mrs. Brina Rentaji here from Vanderbilt? And she's gonna give the debrief of Homeless Health Conference for us. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name's Brina. I'm a master's student at Vanderbilt in their Medicine, Health, and Society program. And this past weekend, we, with Vanderbilt Homeless Health Services, hosted a conference in partnership with Room in the Inn. And it was really themed around street medicine in practice and kind of this capacity building through individual empowerment, built off of a conference we did last year on future physician advocacy. So a lot of pre-health students in the room, but also a lot of community partners. In addition to Room in the Inn, we had folks from The Contributor, folks from just a variety of some people in this room were also there. And so just some takeaways from the whole day. It was a really great day of both presenters. Bobby Watts, the CEO of the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council, spoke. A street medic spoke. And we talked first just about kind of the role of street medicine. And for those of you who aren't familiar, it's this idea of physicians, clinicians kind of going out and meeting people where they're at, going to the people. And so a lot of Vanderbilt's Homeless Health Services teams will go on street rounds to encampments and kind of find out what is it that people need, whether that's wound care or just those basic needs. And that kind of enters them into this system and helps coordinate some of those resources. And so some main takeaways. One, I'd like to echo the call just now for that permanent supportive housing. I think that's very essential in kind of ensuring that we address the complications that still exist once people are placed in housing. But then also, when we lose encampments, and I understand that's kind of some of the direction that the city is going in, while it does, address some of the concerns that some of our citizens are facing, it also loses some people that were previously being served by our medical teams, and now, whereas you may have been interfacing with someone and be able to get them care, housing, or whatever it is, now we're kind of pushing them away to the outskirts, and our medical teams are not able to find those people. And so the care that they were receiving, the relationships that they were building, the coalitions that they were building are now kind of lost. They fall apart. And then the other thing is just, there's a lot of kind of challenges we talked about. Some people from Legal Aid were there, some people from the Tennessee Justice Center. There's just a lot of challenges with whether people have access to even fill out paperwork and forms to kind of get them into these resources. And then also things like the appeal bond law, where you have to put up like a year's worth of rent to show that, you know, you can like stay in the place that you're living. And so eviction's also a huge issue in kind of addressing these upstream factors that then lead to increased homelessness. And I know someone shared some stats about there's been a kind of a rise in March for people that have now entered into that. And I think that we need to be addressing some of these upstream issues as well, rather than just looking at people like now on the streets. Also, what are some of these policies that may lead to an increased likelihood of, at your next paycheck or lack thereof, entering into homelessness. And so those are some of the takeaways, but really this like medical focus on, you know, we know if we get people health care, we can also then get them housing, and housing being a form of health care as well. So thank you, I appreciate it.
That's beautiful, Brina. And if I'm not mistaken, our own Liz Mallard was at that conference as well, and had a beautiful time. I don't know if she has any statements about it and or if anyone has any questions, but I just said it earlier, housing is healthcare, and you lose community when we have these encampment closures. So that's something that lived experience has a pulse on. You're breaking up communities, and the people want to be back with their friends that they made in encampments. We don't know the dynamics of that and what services they're receiving. So thank you so very much for that. Yes, ma'am, Jaha.
Just to piggyback on that, I do think and hear all that is being said, but I think when we are moving as hopefully a board in a city, and we really are looking at supportive services, I'm hopeful we really grasp what all that means. And so oftentimes when we look at like our model with VA, and has been doing this for a while, one of the things, we do have a street medicine team. And so the team doesn't just stop after encampments. We had to look at how do we change this scope of practice. And now once people are settled, as we know, because of the trauma of poverty and homelessness, that oftentimes once they are settled, that is when those things begin. And so I think some of it is, yes, we do need to move from charity to justice. I am a huge advocate of that. But I also think we as agencies, we're getting caught up in the weeds of what are we doing with people on the streets. And we do understand that not everyone will, but I think when those services move with the people, you will see the shift. And so now, like our street psychiatrist, we don't just have him dealing with folks in encampments. When they are housed and still resistant to that mental health, we take him to them. And so then we work, and what we are seeing is that there has been now a greater connection in getting those folks linked to mental health services. We have nurses that go out. We implement home health, home aid, to help people be able to have dignity within their home. And I think that if we don't really start grasping what supportive services are, the city can go and get 400 units tomorrow. What we have historically seen is agencies that are not stepping up or having the capacity. And so I do think those are conversations we have to begin having. What is your board at your particular agency looking at? What is their focus? How do we shift our model? What does the funding look like? So that when these RFPs drop, we aren't continuously just holding the weight just to the city and council. Yes, they can help, but then what are the rest of us doing as a continuum of care? And so I just continue to say that because I think what is happening, we are continually focused on, okay, in some ways, how do we keep these people trapped in encampments and poverty and trauma? And we want to make sure we are remaining human-centered. And so how then do we shift to meet and help motivate people in ways that provide them the dignity and honor and health that they need?
Thank you so very much for that, Jaha. Exactly that. Totally agree. And we're going to move along, I think, if no one else has any responses or questions. Anything? Welcome, Mr. Drew. Thank you so very much, Brina. And then if we could go to Mr. Rico X, our co-chair here in strategic plan and all chairs meeting follow-up.
Yes. So as you all know, annually there is a strategic plan retreat. And as previously reported, we did have that back in February. And so in the aftermath of that, there was a lot of discussion around the amazing and wonderful work that is being done within the various subcommittees of the COC. However, sometimes that work can be siloed, and so I think that there over the last couple of months there's been efforts to get all of the chairs in the room and really discuss that work collaboratively. So one of the updates that I think we wanted to just to highlight is that on March 21st there was a all chairs meeting. And I know Madam Chair was a huge proponent of just getting everyone in the room, and so there was an all chairs meeting on March 21st. And that meeting, there were a few purposes for it. I think first and foremost, it was to really go line by line of the strategic plan. Secondly, it was to really collectively discuss the various levels of responsibility and accountability. And then finally, looking at any areas of overlap, so on and so forth. And so in your packet, you'll see this document that says Continuum of Care Strategic Plan Tracker. And so this is kind of the outcome or the aftermath of that all chairs meeting. And so one of the things I just wanted to kind of highlight that was very interesting was that if you look where it says status update, so again, line by line, we discuss whether this particular activity was on hold or whether it was on track, whether it was in the early stages of the work, or if there was like more definition that was needed in terms of the particular task. And we also talked about just the various committees that were responsible for this particular action, as well as were there any committees that needed to be consulted as the work was happening. And so it really created an opportunity for broader discussion. There were points of clarification that were needed and was very helpful for the respective committee chairs to take back to those committees as they are doing the work. And so just as an FYI, there is going to be a follow-up meeting on April 25th, all chairs, and then from that point, the all chairs meetings will be convening on a bi-monthly basis. But I think that it was just in an effort to keep the momentum going. It was definitely suggested for the all chairs to meet again later on this month. And so, I think as you all know, any strategic plan is only as strong as the ways in which it is tracked, the ways in which you can kind of identify and mitigate any barriers that people are experiencing in real time to accomplish those goals. So super grateful for that effort. And I will pause for any questions relative to that.
Thank you so very much. Anyone? Oh, India.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment, and I'll blend it into another new business item. So I want to pause, and if anyone else has questions for Rico.
I appreciate that report was beautiful, Mr. Rico. Thank you.
I have been thinking a lot, and I really appreciated, I haven't seen this before, where we've had new opportunities for people to continue to have this cross communication. So with the all chairs meeting and with these working group meetings that were convened to talk about downsizing the HPC. And so for me, it's hard to know what I can and can't do as a HPC member. And I think something that I've been thinking a lot about is I don't personally have concerns with the size of the HPC, but for me personally, attendance issues I feel are more related to what this body does and how effective it is or ineffective. And so I want to make a motion, but I also want to get feedback from other people on the council before officially making that motion. But I'd also like to have another working group where we can come together, have more time like we did at the retreat, which I regret that I wasn't able to be at. I was unfortunately in the hospital. But I would really like for this body to have a chance to talk more and, how does the HPC interact with the strategic plan? Yes, we have this committee that's shifting focus and is gonna talk about how that committee interacts with the HPC, but I don't have a good answer to that. And then also, do we wanna shift how this body even operates? I think that, and this isn't anyone's fault, but I think that this meeting is a lot of updates, and we're sitting here and getting updates and answering questions, and then we go home and then we meet next month. And so I would love to, see if other people think that would be helpful to also have a working group where we can try to make this body more efficient, really hone in on what our role as the HPC is in the greater community, and just try to have a chance to communicate within the parameters of sunshine laws.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so very much for that. Very much so on the same page. Did you have something, Mr. David?
Did you hear me from all the way over there?
I just felt you.
No, I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Agreed.
momentum right now after the retreat, after our all chairs meeting, our, even the Beyond the Bridge Steering Committee. There's just a lot of energy, I think, headed in a positive direction. And I do agree that attendance suffers. We talked about this in our Housing Opportunities Committee. If folks show up and they don't feel like we're moving forward, they're not going to come back. And so, to Councilmember Johnson's point earlier about talking is important, but also moving forward is important. And I've been trying to change my relationship with the word accountability. Growing up in a church, it wasn't always used in a positive manner, but ownership, shared responsibility, however we want to call it. When I criticize our community, I'm criticizing myself. I'm not pointing my finger at any one person, but we are responsible for doing better. And I have to believe that we can do better to, maintain some hope that we can solve homelessness here. And so I think having a working group would give us an opportunity to communicate where it can be very difficult to communicate as a member of the HPC due to all of the regulations. So I will second that motion when it comes. And I just want to add that, accountability or shared responsibility looks like having context in some of these reports. We have seen, how many dollars have been spent out of how many we said we were going to spend. But we don't know out of, the number of people served, how many people did we set out to serve? And more importantly, what did we set out to accomplish? What are the outcomes that we're shooting for? And how do the people who don't work in this field every day understand what they should be seeing, right? It's the same with the housing report. It's fantastic that we've housed so many people, but how many of those people stayed housed? How many of those people returned to homelessness and were housed again? And so we need to be talking about the most important outcomes that, keep people safe once they move into housing, to your point, Jaha. People are very vulnerable when they're moved out of an encampment and into housing, separated from their community, separated from resources. They have, fortunately, an opportunity to relax and start to move out of, life and death all day, every day. But that then makes them vulnerable to many new threats. So anyway, thanks for listening to that. I think, we need to really put some thought into how we can make this meeting more effective going forward.
Agreed. Thank you so very much, and Ms. Diana.
Just a quick reflection. I agree with effectiveness and feeling like we are moving the needle. What I would offer is one of the ways that I think I have been able to gain context is by serving on a committee. I've served on the Performance Evaluation Committee for the last, I don't really know, Susie, 3 years or so when they recruited me. That spending time in those committee meetings, I think, is also very helpful. It is a meeting that I can commit to. I can't commit to attending 3 and 4 meetings a month, but I can commit to attending 2. I hear Raquel when she comes and she's She's providing us now with a written document of what all the committees are doing. She's encouraging us to attend the general COC membership meetings because it's important for HPC members to be seen there and be visible. So I'm just offering that. I do think if a working group, an additional working group is helpful for folks, that's great. I would also offer that immersing yourself in an actual committee helps to provide, at least for me, the context of what is happening. And what it allows me to do is come to this larger HPC meeting and ask, I sit by Director Calvin and I ask more direct questions of her most of the time because I have some context of what's been happening at a committee level. And I'm done talking now.
Okay, thank you so very much for that. And Liz?
There was a workshop yesterday for downsizing the Homeless Planning Council, and I don't recall seeing anybody's face from the Homeless Planning Council. Just want to point that out. And there is another one coming up. I believe it's the 25th. 16th. So I would recommend for everybody to maybe put it in their plan or try to, if at all possible. If you could, thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Liz. Was there any? Oh, okay. I don't know. I wasn't looking that way, so whoever can go first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to stress the importance, as I see it, of serving on committees. We all come from different backgrounds and different experiences, and we all have different things to add to this overall effort. My particular interest is in veterans, so I serve naturally on the veterans work group. And, your own individual interest may take you in a different direction, and so there's a whole host of committees and work groups to be involved in. So I think that is probably one of the more important ways to get more involved and to do more for the overall effort. And I just wanted to reiterate that and thank you for bringing that up as an issue. Thanks.
Ms. Michelle.
I was just going to ask Liz. I think I had a bit of confusion, and it's more of just like understanding like political norms, but as an HPC member, what would our role be in the discussion of downsizing? For me, I think my reservation was if a group of people are coming together talking about eliminating or reducing something I'm a part of, do I come because is that like am I like, don't cut me, or just wanting to know like what the expectation would be for us to be there.
Okay, first, I did not create the workshop. I just want to make that clear. But yesterday at it was a lot of, I mean, really negative talk about how we're not getting anything done. And so I think the workshop could go both ways. Yeah, so I mean, because I'm like, what is everybody saying? I'm just kind of going, tell me what I'm supposed to work with here, as a part of my committee that I chair. But I didn't know what it was going to be like going into it either. And it was I wanted to crouch into a corner by myself. So I'm okay, guys. But I just would recommend because it does go both ways. And I thought it was a great idea. It's just, it was crickets in there for the HPC.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, the other thing that goes into my thinking is because of the Open Meetings Act, when there is more than one of us in the same place, and we are potentially discussing HPC business, that is supposed to be noticed as a public meeting. Mm-hmm. So I've strategically tried to put myself on committees where there's not other HPC members or meetings where other HPC members are not going to be present for that reason. And that's just trying to be a little bit more cognizant about how a government works.
Yeah. And also, it is a publicly posted meeting because we knew that it may be more members there. And the work group really is for example, we started this conversation with ICF HUD TA. And then it moved to Cloudburst. And, you know, we have a lot of recommendations that they've made, and this is the only thing that has not been solidified, and that's why it's like, are we doing it? Where are we moving? Should we continue to push? We have gained so much traction and getting so much more money in our federal awards, and saying that we were able to accomplish this would be great. So we started with the Continuum of Care, ensuring that they had a platform where they can answer some of the same questions. We moved to the, I think from the Continuum of Care, went to the retreat. We talked about an executive committee. We have national best practices, and we've also polled other sister-like cities. And so the work group is to bring in all of that work that's been done, a heed to executive committees' final recommendations, and to guide the nominating committee on what steps to take next on getting that done. We have council members that's already said, hey, we would look forward to sponsoring this ordinance because it would take an ordinance to make these recommendations. And so, and we've talked to the vice mayor, and she's fully aware of where we're going with this project. The issue of the work groups is really for anyone who feels as though they haven't had a voice in the process. Definitely would not want to create an area for conflict, but definitely for everyone. And I'm sorry, Liz, if you were there feeling as though you were being met with conflict. And you got those muscles, girl. So just want to make sure that everyone knows you don't have to attend the work groups. We have some pretty good instructions on, or pretty good plans laid out by executive committee, and all the footwork that we've done. The work group is to really offer a little bit of guidance to the nominating committee on, you know, how do we chisel this down? Is it by attrition? When does it happen? And, you know, do we need to put people on the slate this year for a June election? Like that's some of the legwork there as well. But, you know, I think that in the end, majority, I feel exactly what Ingrid is saying as far as like having places to do some networking. I think sometimes we as a department are a little hesitant to host several meetings throughout the month because we are taking up a lot of your time. There's certain people that are in like 10 meetings a month with us, right? Like when is their work getting done? But I think the other part of that is having maybe a whatever we do as far as this body is concerned, we would have to post that as a public meeting, but it could be having a meeting at Pinewood Social where you pay for your own meals, right, Derek? But it could be considered a work group as well, but we would just have to publicly post it for 7 days notice. So if there's more work that needs to be done, if there's more retreats, like I felt like that retreat was very informative. It really got us back to the business of the strategic plan. And as Deanna was saying, a lot of the work lies in the committees. So it's very important for us to host those committee chair, all chair meetings. And for the all chair meetings, HPC can attend as well, right? So sometimes we have things in place. We don't have to always create another meeting to have another meeting to have another meeting. But when we do, it needs to be effective, so.
And India?
In the interest of time, I just want to, make a motion to get a publicly noticed work group meeting posted. This name might be imperfect, but we can call it HPC Operations Work Group Meeting. We can meet once. If it's not helpful, we don't have to meet again. But I personally think that would be helpful, so I'd like to make a motion to convene a temporary working group to talk about HPC operations.
Yeah, there's nothing noted on this meeting's agenda for that purpose. I think you can note for new business that you want that matter addressed, but to have a formal motion, you got to have some indication to the public that you plan to take that action beforehand. But I think working through your staff to set up meetings such as that, it may not require an actual motion. Hate to put burden on staff, but they're here to assist with these types of ideas.
Okay, and I can follow up. I don't know if that would be like working with Raquel to get it publicly noticed, and also can handle like a meeting location and things like that. I want to contribute to that, so I can follow up with that if we don't have to have a motion and a vote.
Okay, and I do acknowledge Ms. Allison's hand up and Jaha, but I do want to say in the the interest of time, we still do have to, I don't know, we can hold it if you choose so, but the story of progress was, the postponement of Beyond the Bridge, but I still do want to hear those comments, and I also see a way to fold in what India is talking about as well, so.
Just super briefly, I think for that purpose, if you want to convene at a publicly noticed meeting, there is one scheduled next Wednesday, 9 a.m. at the Metro Office Building, which is this building right here. So that has already been publicly noticed. It is ready. It is set up. So I think anybody who wants to be part of that conversation, please join that meeting. So
Thank
just throwing
you,
that out there.
Allison, so much, and David.
Yes, it's a work group to talk about HPC downsizing, the operations of the HPC.
That's perfect, thank you so much. And, Mr. David, or? Huh? Okay, if there are no other.
I just had something really quickly. I think, so I'm in alignment with thinking about, when we think about the work that has been done and what is going on, that perhaps, even if it's another, and it doesn't need to be a meeting, but maybe if there's a focus on this agenda around what that looks like in conversation, or even the retreats, what I have seen historically is people who remain confused for whatever reason, I understand, don't attend the board retreats. They don't attend some of these things. And so I guess if we're having this other meeting, and is it really about the downsizing of the board, or is it more so about how we can have more power? I guess is what the question is that I would want to know. And in that perceived power, is it in alignment with what legally we can and cannot do? So prior to us just convening, could there be some back work? Again, hate to put this on OHS, around what the realistic conversation could look like related to this, versus us just having this sort of come together fireside chat, and then we come back and legal's like, no. Because I know we all have regular jobs too, in addition to this. So that would be my only caveat prior to me supporting any other type of work group or brainstorming option.
I think just to add, and really just going back to the all chairs meeting, again, a lot of work is being done in those committees. And I think the follow-up meeting later on this month, I know in the one last month, there was a lot of discussion around, HBC's specific role, to what degree is HBC consulted or not, to what degree is HBC responsible for certain metrics. And so I think I will also say that I think that the meeting later on this month could also provide a platform to discuss the specific role that HBC can play relative to the strategic plan. So and again, I think the more that we're able to look at the strategic plan as a working, living document and how we're all connected to that, including HBC, then that will help with some of the clarity of what we can't do, or should do.
That's perfect. And Raquel?
Sorry, I know we're going long, but I just wanted to quickly add, for initiatives efficiency, 2 things. One, they're hoping to send out a survey, and one of the questions in it is how can we make continuum of care meetings more effective and efficient? So I think feedback on that might be really helpful. They plan on taking those same questions to general membership, so if you attend that meeting, you can also respond there. But then also at their future meetings, I think this is also a potential area of focus. So for those of you who are interested in maybe joining a committee, that could be a great committee to sit down and not only brainstorm about how to make this space more effective, but also, and so like, in terms of how to make meetings more effective, how to make the work actually move forward rather than having circular conversations. Those are all things that they've been really wanting to dig into.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raquel. We can hold out for the story of progress. It's totally up to you. But in closing, I appreciate everyone's thoughts and, pouring into that conversation, because the work is happening. And to Raquel's point, she does the most amazing surveys, and with the results, they are solid data that comes from what we pour into those. So like she said, just those spaces are open and already collecting that data as well. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you so much. And Mr. David.
Thank you. I was going to say, I wasn't aware that there was a story of progress until
Oh,
45 minutes ago
Yeah.
or so. So happy to give the time back if we need to continue the discussion. But I'm talking now, so I'll just continue. So just, I guess, about Beyond the Bridge documentary screening event, obviously that was postponed due to the storms. I think that was the right call, although very disappointing and unfortunate. That was a tough kind of game day decision, but I think, again, fortunately, some of the positives that came out of that and the progress of that effort was opening up the conversation among some folks who have struggled to have open conversations. There's been kind of an opening to new paths to collaboration, which is really what the film is about, how philanthropy, service providers, the business community, government comes together and actually solves homelessness and really highlights other communities, some of whom we've heard about before, but really digs into Milwaukee, I believe Houston, maybe Austin's in there too, but there are things that some of which we've done and many of which we have not, and we can and we should. There's opening doors to new investments. So again, the business community, one of the stories the filmmaker told was about getting business together and just reporting monthly on what we're accomplishing, specifically outcomes, and doing that for, I don't remember, maybe 18 months or more. To the point where they were starting to understand what their investment could do and began to invest, right? So just start with, here's what we're accomplishing, here's what the outcomes are, and people ask all the time, how can I get involved? And so that is giving them the answer kind of on the front end. And then I think, again, opening minds to accountability and how important that is. I don't feel right about asking the business community or Metro to invest in anything if they're not getting what they're paying for. And so that's what I mean when I'm talking about the context or the outcomes is we need to know, are we making an impact, right? Again, Councilmember Johnson maybe 6 months ago or more talked about this, pretty in depth. And we just need to start seeing that forward movement. And again, I'm taking responsibility myself for that as a member of this council. April and I had a good conversation not too long ago, and I expressed some frustration maybe about, decisions that were made or just even like, RFPs that go out and no one applies, and the question is why, and who's consulted in those things. And April made a good point, which is that, people don't step up or people don't participate or people have opportunities and they let them go. And I agree that that happens. And so I think that if we want to lead, then we have to lead. And, Jaha, your point's well taken about what is our power, what's our responsibility, or what's our role. I think that we do need to get clarity on that because I see us as co-leaders of this community's effort to solve homelessness with OHS. Mm-hmm. But if we're going to be co-leaders, then we need to know what is our scope, what are the areas of overlap, what is our shared responsibility, and how do we work together and collaborate so that all the work is not falling to the Office of Homeless Services, right? So I think, Rika, I think that's a good point to, maybe kick off some working group at the all chairs meeting because a lot of the same people will be in the room. But I do think that these meetings can and should be more effective. So the Beyond the Bridge working group, our steering committee plans to stay in contact to try to engage, in particular, the business community over the next 6 months. I should make sure I thank everyone who was a part of that. April Burns Norris, Drew Freeman, Michael Durham, Matt Olson, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Freeman Webb. He has a lot of energy around engaging the business community and kind of following in the footsteps of Kirby Davis, who always carried the torch for that. Ingrid McIntyre, India Pangarcher, Kenitha Patterson, and April Calvin. So, excellent conversation the night before the event was supposed to occur, meet and greet. Dr. Simbaris was there, filmmakers as well, and I think we came away with some concrete steps that we can take to kind of get ourselves unstuck. So I don't think I have anything more to add, but if you have questions, I'm happy to fill in any blanks. So.
Beautiful.
Very quickly, I think that's a wonderful update, and maybe it'll be discussed at the next screening, but I would love to, at some point, hear what those concrete steps. I'm like you, I'm ready for the action, so thanks. for that.
Absolutely that. I agree. And
When it's gonna be rescheduled? Have we?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So we're looking at the fall. Councilmember Delisha Porterfield, sorry that I left her name out, so she advised and made a good point that, if we're trying to impact the budget, frankly, with this screening event, we've kind of come, we're at the end. Yeah, we're beyond that. So that's why, we want to continue the work in the meantime, so we're not losing that momentum, and then focus perhaps on next year's budget cycle. But good question, sort of comment about concrete steps. I think, Austin coming and talking about their investment in this community in $4 million in rental subsidy, helping 400 people at, $10,000 person, along with $10 million a year in supportive services. And that's paying off. As someone mentioned earlier, it's much more cost effective to invest in permanent supportive housing than it is to pay for all the other things that we're paying for, not to mention the impact it is to human beings. But we need to, again, make sure that our services are effective and that we're keeping people housed, and that, we're not just moving people from one place to another and then they're back on the street and more vulnerable than they were in the first place.
I would just, I understand that timing, you think, is about affecting the budget. I think I would rather, not in lieu of, but I think it's also important to use this film to engage the public. And so having something, I would say have two screenings where you have people like us that are, the organizations and the council members and the, those types of people where we can watch and understand from a policy perspective and a strategic plan perspective what we need to do, but to also broaden that and have an opportunity for the public to come. And I don't know, the logistics of that, like, do you put it in a movie theater? I don't know. But it's really hard to communicate effectively to people what the work is, what the problems, plural, are, and how complicated it is, and people get really frustrated and then they tune out. And so all they see is what they see, and they get really frustrated, and what are you doing in the city, and and it's just negative. But when you educate people, like, that was why it was so important, the welcome kits. I used that welcome kit when we were closing the encampment in my district to engage the community, so that they knew what we were doing and how we were doing it and why we were doing it. And it was so impactful. There were so many people that were so like, oh my God, I can't believe you're going to talk about this at a community meeting. Why are you going to, it's like talking about politics at Thanksgiving, right? Like, don't bring it up because people are going to get upset. And nobody got upset, because when you talk about it factually, but so I just really think that, I hope that the steering committee, now that we've, this is passed and it had to change, let's think about broadening that so that we can increase the number of people that are going to be engaged and educated by it. I think would be really helpful, because it's more than just impacting our budget.
Yeah, no, great point, well taken. I tend to leave things out. So the filmmakers are doing an impact campaign across the country. I think they've had 23, 25 cities that they've already hit, and they've had turnouts of 1,000 people or more. And so it's not only to impact the metro budget, it's also to engage the business community and just community members. One of the quotes that I appreciate in the film the most is, if you don't want affordable housing in your backyard, you'll have homelessness in your front yard. And that's really about getting people to think about what do they want their city to look like, and how can they get involved, and what's their part in that, even if it's just their energy and their support, right? And so I think that was, a smart move with the welcome home kits. And, I'm hopeful that when this comes back around in the fall, that we'll have a major turnout. So, yeah, thanks again for talking about this. And I think, we've learned some lessons and can kind of engage even more people to help spread the word next time around.
Thank you so very much, everybody. I'm going to adjourn. I just want to say also thank you to Councilwoman Brenda Gadd. She offered to sponsor the screening because it was in her district. And we do appreciate also Otter Creek, the church that was going to host it as well. So did want to leave those names out. And thank you so very much for today's meeting, everyone. Oh, yeah.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.